Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to do something super practical and honestly, pretty cool. We're building a complete multi-node Kubernetes lab right here on our own machines. Forget about cloud bills or confusing managed services. This is all about pure hands-on learning. So, let's see how we're going to do it.
So here's our game plan. First up, we'll dive into that classic debate. Should you learn on the cloud or on your local machine? Then we'll meet the tool that makes this all possible, Kind. After that, we get our hands dirty and spin up our first simple cluster. Then we'll level up to a proper multi-node lab. And finally, we'll cover a skill that is absolutely essential, mastering contexts so you can switch between your labs like a pro.
All right, so you've decided you want to learn Kubernetes. Awesome. But the very first fork in the road is where you're going to practice. And believe me, this choice, it can totally change how well you actually get this stuff. So the big question is, do you go with a managed service in the cloud, like EKS or GKE, or do you roll up your sleeves and build a local setup? Now, you might think the cloud is just easier, right? But when it comes to learning, yeah, there's a catch.
Okay, so here's the breakdown. When you use a managed cloud service, the control plane, the brains of the whole operation, it's a black box. It's hidden. They manage it all for you, which is fantastic for a real production app, but it's terrible for learning because you can't see it, you can't break it, and you can't fix it. A local lab, on the other hand, gives you the keys to the kingdom. You have full access to everything, you manage it all, and that means you get the maximum hands-on experience, which is exactly what you need to pass an exam like the CKA.
So if we agree that local is the way to go for serious learning, how do we pull it off without a massive headache? Well, this is where an amazing little tool comes into the picture. Let's meet Kind.
Kind is literally short for Kubernetes in Docker, and honestly, that name tells you pretty much everything you need to know. It's a beautifully simple tool that was designed for one thing, running Kubernetes clusters locally, easily. And the idea behind it is just brilliant. Instead of messing around with heavy virtual machines, Kind just spins up some standard Docker containers, and then it just pretends each one is a full-blown Kubernetes node. It's super lightweight, it's fast, and it's absolutely perfect for running on your laptop. All right, enough talk. Let's actually build something. We're going to start simple with a single node cluster, just so you can see for yourself how ridiculously easy Kind makes all of this.
And this is it. Seriously, one command. You type kind create cluster. We give it a name using the -name flag. We'll call it KK-cluster1. And this next part is really important. We use the -image flag to lock in a specific Kubernetes version. This is so crucial for exam prep, like for the CKA, where you have to practice on the exact version they're going to test you on. And just like that, you have a Kubernetes cluster. Pop open your terminal and run kubectl get nodes, and you'll see it. There's one node, and its role says control plane. Now, in this simple setup, it's kind of pulling double duty. It's acting as both the brain and the muscle, the control plane and the worker. But it's a perfect first step.
Okay, that was a great warm-up. But let's be real, you're probably not going to run a real application on a single node cluster. To get closer to what you'd see in the real world, we need to level up and build a proper multi-node cluster. So why bother? Well, in the real world, you separate the control plane that manages everything from the worker nodes that actually run your apps. It's all about stability and organization. And we can tell Kind to do this for us using a super simple configuration file. Think of it like a little recipe for a cluster. And here is that recipe. It's just a little YAML file. Now, don't let the syntax scare you off. Just look at the important part, down at the bottom, the nodes section. We're just telling it plain and simple. Hey, give me one node with the role control plane, and two more with the role worker. That's all there is to it.
So what you do is you save that little block of text to a file. Let's call it config.yml. Then we run our kind create cluster command again, but with two little changes. We give it a new name, KHK-cluster2, so we don't overwrite our first one, and we add this -config flag to point Kind at our new recipe file.
And boom, check this out. Run kubectl get nodes again, and you'll see the magic. You now have three nodes, one clearly labeled as the control plane, and two dedicated worker nodes, just sitting there, waiting for you to deploy your apps. This is a real professional-style lab, right on your laptop. Okay, this is awesome. We now have two completely separate Kubernetes clusters running at the same time. But this creates a new challenge. And honestly, learning how to handle this is what separates the beginners from the pros. We need to figure out how to manage both of them. I mean, think about it for a second. When you type a command like kubectl get pods, How on earth does it know if you mean the pods in Clocka Cluster 1 or the pods in Clocka Cluster 2? The answer is a really important concept called contexts. A kubeconfig context is basically just a shortcut. It's a little bundle of settings inside your main configuration file that says, okay, for this shortcut name, we're talking to this cluster using this user's credentials. It tells kubecontrol exactly where to point its commands. You can actually see all the contexts that Kind set up for you automatically. Just run the command kubeconfig get contexts. You'll see your 2 new clusters in that list. And look for the little star. That asterisk tells you which context is active right now. And switching between them, it's so easy. The command is kubeconfig use context, and then you just give it the name of the one you want to talk to. So if you want to work with your first single node cluster, you just run use context kind CKA cluster 1, and when you're ready to go back to the big multi-node lab, you run it again for kind CKA cluster 2. It's that simple. Now, why am I making such a big deal about this? I cannot stress this enough. In a certification exam like the CKA, almost every single question will start by telling you which context to switch to. If you forget that one step, you could do everything else perfectly, but on the wrong cluster, and you will get 0 points. Mastering this is probably the most important habit you can build. And there you have it. Look at what you've done. In just a couple of minutes, with a few simple commands, you've gone from 0 to having a powerful, flexible, professional-grade Kubernetes lab that you have total control over. You know how to build different architectures and, crucially, you know how to switch between them. So the only real question left is, what are you going to build first?